Welcome. Hello, everybody. It is a Wednesday. I think this is the first time we've actually done this show on the date we said we would do it. We were like, okay, first of every month, and then it's just turned into whenever we can squeeze it into the week. So we're so happy to be here today. We have a couple of announcements before diving right in, because we have a lot to talk about tonight. If you are watching for the very first time, if you're like, wow, this is a cool little setup they have, and you don't know what we're going to be talking about, don't watch this. This is Spoiler City. Tonight we're going to be talking major spoilers for episodes 81 through 86 of the Basically Good podcast. We are nearing our goal on Patreon. So there's a couple of commands you can put in the chat. If you are interested in supporting us that way, you can !Patreon, !Tip, or !Donate directly to get to those areas. This is honestly more of a show just to strictly break down the thoughts and opinions on our players, as well as hear from several of our patrons that have questions regarding these last few episodes. We're gonna go ahead and introduce our cast here for the evening. So we have an absolutely loaded studio today. We have joining us from our player perspective is we'll start from the bottom left here. We have our one and only Ronnie. You know him as Kalari on the show. Ronnie, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, feeling good, hanging out.
He's doing great. He's feeling good. Okay, also, Ronnie just started school again, I'm pretty sure, like recently, and he is just swamped. So it is huge that we have him here tonight. So Donnie, thank you so much. Big applause from the audience here for Ronnie. Thank you so much for being here. Next, we have our very own Silas. Frizzygig joining us. Silas, how are you doing this evening?
Hi. I have a cat.
We got Cat Cam.
Doing good. Just trying to keep this guy from eating the power cord of my computer, and happy to talk with people while I do it.
Astounding. We love it. Lots of cat fans in the chat. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're going to go ahead and welcome our Patreon heroes this evening. We have a couple of new faces that have not, I think this is the first time on the show for every single one of them, for both of them. Every single one. That's like if we had like 10 people. But let's go ahead and start with Michael M. Hosty. How are you, man? Thanks for coming. How you doing? Uh-oh. Are you muted, sir? Oh, no, you're good now. I mean, now we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Hello.
All right. I'm doing very good. I am so happy to be here. I am braving the storms here in Northern Virginia.
You got
staying dry and warm.
Yeah, you got hurricanes over there, right?
I mean, it's like, the remains of hurricanes. But you can imagine what the remains of a hurricane look like while you're trying to dismiss a school of 500 elementary kids at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yikes.
So it's been a good day.
Well, we're stoked to have you. I know that we've been trying to get you on for a couple of months now, and having a cleared schedule, whether or not it's due to a hurricane, but it's still nice to have you here. We're super jazzed to have you. One question we do want to ask, we ask all of our guests is, what is your favorite ice cream?
I am sure, I hope you guys are familiar with it, but it's the Ben & Jerry's Half-Baked. I want to say it's a mixture of things. I haven't had it in a while, but it's for sure my go-to, and I've definitely eaten at least 15 like single sitting pints. I've done that at least 15 times. That's my go-to for sure.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. Very cool. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have our very own Deo Dunga, who is, holy cow, he's cosplaying as Cork. We had a couple of images drop. He went to a party not too long ago and was dressed as Cork. It was actually for movie night. We watched Shark Boy and Lava Girl, so he dressed up as our Shark Boy. But I see it as making a reprise role. Hunter, how are you?
I'm good. Our boy Cork is back in the building. One more night. I'm good. Yes. Hunter Dale Dunga, WebMD. If you lurk around the Project J space, you might recognize me as Doctor Internet. And I could not be more thrilled to be here, and I could not be more thrilled to be talking about these Eps. So we're ready. Cork is ready. The earrings are ready.
Yeah, there's lots of chatter on the earrings. I want to definitely like make sure that we're talking about those because those may be the best part of the whole thing. They're
Guys.
just stunning.
You have no idea. This ended up being the most stressful shopping experience of my life. And
I
it
heard
all
it was
started
rough.
because the most a somewhat famous costume store only has one type of costume earrings. They're the hoops. I can't tell you how long trying to find some good costume earrings. I couldn't find any. Finally, I found the hoops. I said, you know what? I bet they got some rings. I'll buy those. I'll put those on instead. We'll make it work. I found the rings. The cash register goes down.
No, dude. So
And
it
it
was
gets way worse. I'm
yeah.
not going to go into the rest of the
Right.
story because it was like 15 minutes after that point until I got to leave with my new earrings.
yikes.
But these were hard fought. And I may, who knows? I may step up to the real ones now. Time will tell.
We may upgrade.
I
Absolutely.
might be Rano. I might be Mondo Rano gang.
For
who
sure.
knows?
Well, let's go ahead and dive right in here. I mean, everybody's been talking about it. We're real jazzed to talk about these episodes. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we'll do our best to crush it. But there's so much that could be brought up, so let's just let it go. We're gonna start with the Chittering Geist. So at the end of last what's going on here, we talked a little bit about taking this elevator down of the Geeve all the way down to the bottom level of the Geeve, the most secure, and it's monitored by this. We didn't really know what it was until showing up. The episode previously, episode 80, ends with the guard getting like the life sucked out of him, and we kick off with this Geist that is pretty much begging for mercy or help or being released from being down here, which kind of stresses us all out because we're trying to figure out how to not die and also maybe help the poor thing. But this episode is just one long combat. And so pretty much right off the bat, one of the questions that I have for you, let's start with Silas here. There's this moment that everybody is getting ready to fight. We're all trying to figure out how we can harm a ghost. And Frizzy Gig mentions pretty much right off the bat, like, I'm prepared for a heist. I didn't think we were going to be fighting something like this.
Yeah.
Does this kind of inspire like helplessness among Frizzy Gig, or is he spurred on to get more creative? What was kind of going through your head as you were literally like looking through your bag, on what to do?
More.
We got cats.
He just got up to look in his bag for how to answer that question.
I definitely, Silas as the player was a little helpless. For sure. There just really was nothing I could do to that ghost. We'll talk about this more. Like I guess the maybe like the short answer is like I definitely, and I think Brizzigig as well, like very clearly need to change our strategy a little bit.
Right.
Because like just doing the alchemist as a class damage wise has like fallen off kind of hard, and the damage will get like I'll get more damage as we level up, but not a lot more like compared to how much health and resistances things are getting. Gosh damn it, this cat. What are you doing? Just
Need to get that cat under
trying to turn
control.
off my computer.
Cat parenting.
Trying so hard. He's hungry. So anyway, so yeah, like just relying on damage to be useful just kind of isn't really an option for me anymore. So I need to be. So I've been looking into ways I can do that better, and I'm probably gonna focus more on establishing some damage over time, kind of right off the bat, and then focusing on like debuffing and stuff like that, and more like healing and building a lot more pots and stuff, so Aaron can use the spells for other stuff.
Right.
Is there space, Silas, do you think, for a lot of like just almost pure map control from that role?
Not as much. Not as much as I wish there was. Definitely like the class is falling off in some way, because I was looking even into like other archetypes of alchemy of how you can build an alchemist, like focusing more on elixirs or mutagens, and definitely if you like, unless you are buffing yourself with like mutagens and becoming a meat shield, which was like why can't I think of his name right now? Chance's Hobgoblin elf.
Growl.
Growl,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right.
Unless you're building like that, like there's not a ton of elixir support. There's like some cool stuff, but there's not a lot more you could do other than what I'm doing. And like that's like extremely useful in combat.
Right.
There are definitely other elixirs, but a lot of them aren't really combat focused. You know, it's like comprehension elixirs and dark vision elixirs and stuff like that.
Situational like buffs or crutches.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I've got I have some plans. And we'll talk about how, you know, other things went in the episodes we're gonna discuss later on. But yeah, basically, like, no, I'm definitely like, that fight was kind of was like, okay, like I can't keep playing this class like I have been,
Right.
and I need to change some things.
Yeah.
This is like me as a player, and just like Brizzigig as a character, like the same strategy isn't working anymore, and some
Right.
things have to change.
Yeah, no, that's great. I know that Frizzigig kind of takes off. He like runs up north a bit, to try to find Urkel's cell. You know, like it's like how maybe I can get this open, and we can get him out, and he can help us, or we can just bail, right? Maybe we don't kill this thing. So that I thought, I mean, it was pretty utilitarian. You know, support, hard support, to go try to make that happen. So. Along those lines, you know, there's a question that kind of coincides with one that Hunter has planned for us. So I'll ask mine, and then you can maybe even ask yours, Hunter, and we can just like pair it up together. But there's a scene that happens in the middle of the fight that, you know, everybody's just kind of beating on this ghost, you know, we go up the elevator a little bit, we go down the elevator, try to, you know, we can kind of video game gimmick it a little bit. But Sarah goes like crazy a little bit and starts attacking the ghost pretty heavily, and takes a lot of damage. And there's this moment where Kalere is telling her, like, you've done enough. Like, you need to go away and let me handle this. I think that's a very interesting position for Kalere. Does Kalere and Sarah stops. She doesn't listen, right? Like, Sarah does not listen and continues to fight. Does Kalere feel like she needs to protect Sarah at all, or is it more like, is it something else? What does their relationship kind of look like thus far in this episode? And Deo Dungi, you kind of have a question that coincides with that too, I think. But the flip side. You are muted, sir.
Moot.
Do you want me to jump in right now, or do you want Ronnie to jump in for a second?
Ronnie, you can go ahead and answer, and then we'll look on the other side of it. Go ahead.
Unless you want me to jump in.
No, that's fine.
Ronnie.
We can go with Ronnie first, yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it relatively short since yours is related, Hunter. But I don't think Kalere is necessarily trying to protect Sarah as much as she sees a lot of what she could become in Sarah in this moment. Kind of like Sarah, the only thing that is pushing her forward right now is rage, right? That's all she basically has is this like righteous desire to get her son back and to make those who did this to her son pay, right? Um, and that is very similar to the headspace Kaleri is in a lot of the time of getting something back or protecting someone or enacting vengeance on someone for something they did, right? She's very familiar with the way that that rage feels. So this is one of the first times she is on the outside of that rage as someone who is as someone who cares, right? Like she sees Sarah, she's like, Sarah, this is unreasonable, right? Like obviously the logical thing to do would be to let me take over here, like let me help you. You've done enough, right? But I think it was really well played by you, Zach. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about what was going through Sarah's head at this point. I'm sure we'll get to that. But Sarah basically just like, no, like I'm here to get my son back. That's all I have. I'm not leaving until that's done, right? If I die trying, I'll die trying. I don't care, right? So I thought that was a really cool moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, really good. Hunter.
Yeah, I actually have. So, what's funny is I don't have anything that I've kind of thought through directly related to this precise moment, but I have two thoughts kind of tangentially related. One for Silas, and one really more for you, Zach. So maybe I'll
Right.
hook into Silas, and then we can come back to me for a second, because it's all about me. Um, no, so what I thought about in that particular moment, I think that, and it's tough to say because they're both kind of related, but what you might be thinking of, Zach, is there's this moment where, and it as sort of flavor. Oh wait, I forgot. I had a couple of things written down. This is for one thing. This is wait. I wrote. Hold on. Episode 81.
This is 81.
The one with two cold opens.
Right.
You guys get it? Because the ghost freezes the guard to death. So
We got an
so there's
applause from the audience.
so there's two cold opens. Because there's the normal cold open, and which is like cinematic, and then there's the second one which is just actually cold. Okay. It's also the battle of shit. Sorry, I wrote that down over here. You're getting it.
He's
right?
like, I gotta read this.
You
I
do.
need to read this.
Oh, the Battle of Dread versus Demoralized.
Yeah.
Just like alliteration. That's it. And polarity. Because what are humans without it? Okay, that's enough bullshit. Silas, there's a point in this conflict where, of course, we kind of see Sarah going crazy, and Zach, as a player, even calls out, like, the decisions she's making don't really make sense. And from a kind of moral and objective standpoint, you know, Sarah's hasn't ever really made a lot of sense to Frizzigig, I don't think. And still, there's this point where she's about to go down. She gets dropped to like 14 health points / 14 max health points. And it's, of course, it's Frizzigig that comes in, pops an elixir of life in, and kind of at least gives Sarah some buffer. And you know, of course, there's a player mechanic of just like party member, low HP, bad, no, you know, must fix. But, you know, is there any thought for a Frizzigig's mind here of like, you know, whether it's like, oh, great, I gotta like, for some reason I feel compelled to save this moron, or even more generally, like, kind of what, I'm just so curious what Frizzigig thinks about Sarah this whole arc, but also in this moment where it's like you said, like Frizz has joked about before, back in episode season 1, I gotta come in and save everybody from running in and doing dumb stuff. And now this character to Frizz has probably just only done dumb stuff.
Something that hasn't really come up, but that has been in the back of my mind, and I've been trying to like move Frizzigig towards more and more. And it just really hasn't come up in conversation. After the end of the like chapter 2, there is this like big void in Frizzigig's life of his sister, like to fill, and I guess also kind of in his mind, if you remember, I know we talked about this at some point, but like Frizzigig's sister was always going to be the next leader, and that wasn't Frizzigig's role, and if she's not around, that has to be him, and he doesn't want that, and so now kind of like there's a part of him that's that wants to step up and fill that role.
Yeah.
And as a grieving process, I guess, and also as a like in memory of her. So I think he has definitely been making some choices and saying some things, and that the reason he's doing it is because that's what his sister would want if she were around, and so that's part of it. And I think the other part is to, you know, like Frizzigig has slowly kind of become more just, I guess, like group minded, and you know, what's better for the group is also good for me. So a combo of those two things, but mostly like those choices of him just kind of like humbling himself and helping this person that he thinks is really stupid is because he is like going through the thought process of, I don't want to do this, but if Treazel was here, she would do this, so I will do it.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's great.
I hadn't really thought quite to this point. It's on in some way, and I have a lot of thoughts, of course, and you and I think have talked a little bit, you know, off air or whatever, about particularly Frizzigig with, you know, his sister and sort of the sense of purpose, calling, anything like that. And I definitely have, I think, more poignant or more concrete thoughts about that in later episodes. But the idea of almost, in a way, Frizzigig's motivation, his motivation being Treazel, has never really changed. But the reasoning, how he considers that into his reasoning, is kind of almost changing everything. And that's not something I feel like you see a whole lot in a written character, particularly in a improv D&D sort of setting. So that's fun. Thank you.
No, yeah. And I guess it makes sense. Like you know, if your focus has always been on one thing for so long, and suddenly that thing like changes, you just, I guess that's a weird, I don't like, humanness thing is like you warp or twist whatever you were obsessed with before into this new, like into a new way of still obsessing about it. It's like
condition ourselves, right? I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
Like anytime you try to move on from something, if it drives what you do, it drives how you do it, whether you realize it or not. So even that, like, if in Frizz's mind everything is how do I get to Treazel, and now it's even just like how do I be like Treazel?
Yeah.
It's still that same like core, but totally different. That's really cool.
Yeah. In an effort to like not let things change, you kind of end up changing everything.
Yeah, bingo. Bingo. Thank you. I'll move on then into looping it back to Zach, to actual Sarah's perspective, and her general mind state, mental health, yada yada. I think also better for later episodes, but I'm just thinking this whole arc. I mean, Sarah is a character that's thrown at us in a very different way from many of the other characters at this point. To see her played this way, she's old, she's experienced, you know, she's tired, and she is confronted with, you know, like even Chance says, well, you actually probably have heard of this thing, this Chittering Geist, like you know lore here. What is going on in Sarah's mind, or just for our kind of own background, what's her relationship to what, to somebody like even Urkel at this point might be like, wow, I can't believe some of this stuff was true, or I knew things were dirty, I didn't know it was all this corrupt. You know, what is this new for Sarah? Is this old?
Right.
Is it surprising? Is it another day?
Right. No, I think that's a really good question. I'd say, you know, I don't necessarily think that it's this you know, it's not that it's not shocking. I do think that she, I don't know. I think it's more like she has found a way. It's kind of implied. We don't really have any moment where she fully talks about like her past career, but she's like a private eye, right? Like she's got her own firm back in the day. And it was like, she didn't really see, it wasn't like she was a good guy, and it wasn't like she was an adventurer. She just made money. Like whoever had money to pay her, she would just like work for him. And so with all that like in mind, I think the biggest shock to her is what Eladier has become over the years. Like we have lots of flashbacks from Urkel's youth where he is like playing in the countryside, right? Like he's out in his little like field, like a little house, and there's like plenty of space. And as the city grows, as he gets older, it builds around her home. So she's just seen kind of a change, like a shift, and yeah, like corruption gets bad. Corruption gets worse. But I think for her, it's not so much like shocking to where she's like, you know, that's not her focus. At least for these episodes, it's not her focus. Like she's trying to get her kid back, and I think she's dealing. You mentioned, you know, she's kind of losing it. She's dealing with, especially in this episode, to bring it back into this episode, she's dealing with two things all at once. One, still grieving. You know, still grieving the loss of Tiberius. And two, she's so close to her son that she's like, I don't know. I see like people, when you get so close to like something, you see it in a lot of villains. Like it's portrayed in film and in fiction with villains. Like they're so close to something they've been chasing for so long that it like almost doesn't matter. Like no matter what gets in their way, like they're gonna get it. And so she's like, she knows that she thinks she can hold on just a little bit longer, and that everybody just keeps hitting this thing, that she is just gonna like, she is going to send this thing back to hell if it's the death of her, you know, like she's gonna at least finish the job. So I think that's where her mentality is. And back to the three, you know, hobos a few episodes ago, like she just ends them, and it's like, sorry, that's just how it is.
It's objective.
Right. So not good, you know, by no means.
Right.
I think is she like making great decisions, but she has a job that she's got to get done, and it's kind of the last. She's an old lady. Like it's like one of the last things that she wants to do. Like if she can take down the guy who did it and save her son, she's gonna feel really good about herself, you know.
Yeah. It's almost like I was thinking about I didn't really think a whole lot about, you know, oh, this is what it is now. And it's almost like she always knew the city would change. It's I didn't think this is what it would look like.
Right. I think there's some truth to that.
Oh, I've got to do this again.
Right. So really good questions. You know, we wrap this episode in a way that, you know, it's a very cool ending. A lot of people, I think it's even made it into the recording, like, you know, my favorite arc in the entire season is the chittering guys being freed, you know? Like, there's a great line where it just says, like, I'm free here. I think that's it, right?
Something.
Like,
I have
or something.
One last thing I forgot is that the first 10 minutes of this episode is like that point in a stealth level in a video game where you think you lose, but you think you're close enough you can rush the end, and then like it's, for whatever reason or another, it's like, oh no, this is gonna take way longer than I thought. But that's really what, when you guys go back up, and you even mentioned it, like we almost video game rig it to go back up and back down.
Right.
That felt so much like a time where you're like, oh, the alarm went off, but I think I can get out the door before my HP goes to 0.
Right.
And then it's, maybe not, maybe we can't.
Right. We're gonna keep going because we have lots to keep going through. Moving on to the next episode. So this is episode 82. It's 7A3, the actual cell number of Urkel's cell. In this episode, we rescue Urkel. He is free. There's a lot of discovery at what the heck is at the bottom of this this floor, and we end up getting getting out and bumping into an old friend. Even friend is a bad word, but an acquaintance. There's this moment at this episode, at the beginning of this episode, where the Frizzigig gets the door open, and they're talking for just a little bit, and then eventually Kalere comes in and says, Urkel and her are talking back and forth, and Urkel apologizes. He apologizes to everyone, and he says, I'm sorry, I haven't been truthful. And this is a crazy scene, because this is the first time they've talked about this lie, and we've known about it since the end of season 1. So it's very cool to kind of finally have this conversation. And Kalere just hand on the shoulder. Ronnie, you say Kalere puts her hand on his shoulder and pulls him in for a hug. And she says something along the lines of, I don't care what you did. I'm just glad you're alive. Is forgiving Urkel easy at this point? Is there any trust issues that Kalere is holding at this point in regards to what happened?
I don't think so. I think that forgiving Urkel was easy for a few reasons for Kalere. One, just to be frank, from a breaking the fourth wall standpoint, from a player standpoint, we've known what happened for a while. So like
that is truth.
It's kind of hard to like put yourself in that shock position when you already know what's going on, right? And you know some of what, like, why he did it, right? Like he was in a really bad place with Bureau kind of stepping on his nuts, and you know, like I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing, right? So but from a character perspective, I think
Shove the guy off a cliff. I don't know. Maybe we should shove him.
I didn't get the promotion.
Just kill him.
yeah, I mean,
No employers
unhinged.
watch this interview from Ronnie.
Completely unhinged.
Great guy.
Completely unhinged. But yeah, from a character perspective, I think everything moved a little bit too fast for Kalere to really be angry at Urkel, right? So, all this shit happens, and like our lives are in danger, but Urkel's missing and Tiberius is dead. And that is already enough to take all focus away from maybe Urkel did something. It's, we got to get Urkel back, right? Like no matter what. And we talked about that in the first What's Going On Here a lot. But so there's just the one goal that we all have of getting Urkel back no matter what it takes, that overshadows nearly everything the entire time. And then whenever we meet up with Vittori and we get some of that memory juice, the white viscous memory juice. that we
White
all
viscous
drink,
memory juice.
Memory milk. Memory milk.
Memory milk.
Mem milk.
we get a better idea of what actually happened and what's going on behind the scenes. We find out that Bureau's still alive and is a massive scumbag, and is working with Vote, who is a villain by the highest standard of the word. So I think that all those things get mixed up in, right? It's not like Urkel murdered an innocent person in cold blood and we're breaking him out of prison because we don't like the fact that he's being punished. It's that the person he did kill was one of the most evil people in Isker and kind of deserved it, and also isn't dead. So
Right.
I think that Kalere, one, understood a violence from passion, like a rage of a murder that was caused by a passionate response, right? She gets that. She gets being full of rage. She doesn't hold that against Urkel. She's just glad that he's alive because that's been the one goal they've had for the past 2 weeks, and they finally get him back. So.
Right. No, it's great. That's great. There's also, in the same cell, there's this moment where Frizz says to Urkel, hey, big green guy, it's little green guy, we're gonna get you out of here. And they have a great exchange.
I was proud of that one.
It's very good. And then when everybody comes in, Kalere, you say we've made it. We did it. Like there's this moment where everybody is in the same room, alive. There's no immediate threat. What is, everybody is kind of feeling this. What is Frizzigig feeling? at this moment? Is this an actual time to celebrate? You know, is there fear for what's ahead, or is it a good time to take a breath? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think Frizzigig has felt like a pressing need to get it, well, to get all of this done like quickly for a long time.
Right.
And this has just like kind of become another step in this journey that like keeps getting stretched out for him. Because I still don't think he is, I mean, we don't know what the future is, but like I would assume, you know, if I was playing just like a normal D&D campaign and I wasn't worried about like trying to, I don't know, spoil things or something, I this whole time I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we're gonna get all of the things and I'll set his ring and then we're gonna go, you know, and each one's like its own little world in the video game, and but like Frizzigig as a character, I don't think is really thinking that way, and I think to him it feels like we've just been like we're kind of like putting out fires, and the fire just keeps growing in front of him. And so there is like definitely a sense of urgency, especially through all of this, because like one, like we have to get like it's not just we have to get Urkel, like we have to get Urkel out of here and we have to get back, because who knows what's going on back home.
Right.
And Frizzigig's definitely very worried about what's going on back home. Because I mean, if they're getting their asses kicked, Frizzigig knows, you know, Jeremiah can't take much more.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think that's real good, you know. And we'll talk about that in a second too. Hunter, did you have any questions for this one as well?
I did. I mean, I did. Let me see which ones are good questions. So I think along those lines, yeah, I did have one. It's kind of right in the middle of some things, you know. When is it not? I thought it was really interesting to see or to think about Frizzigig being the one there to see Sarah and Urkel sort of reunite, especially in light of I mean, to zoom out, like with Frizzig, like you said, like Frizzigig's always been a hurry because this was always holding him up from something, and even now that something is gone, there's always been urgency, and Frizzigig probably just wants to close loops out too, you know, like he doesn't seem like the 4-year-old to like unresolved business. What? But at the same time, like I just kind of wonder, like he just figured out to his mind, like his sister's probably dead. He has this weird, awkward relationship with his parents. Even when he goes home, like he's
Right.
like he kind of comes home because he feels like he should. What is Frizzigig thinking watching this? Like Sarah coming in, almost killing her son, who also did like kind of murder a guy. You know, what does that say to Frizzigig, who's like, I have no purpose, but I love my sister?
Okay. For peeling back the curtain, which I feel like is kind of like the whole purpose of this. I got a little mixed up in that moment, and I totally thought everyone was there. And so, like, if I'm being 100% honest, when that was happening, I kept expecting like Kalere to step in, and
Frizz is
and
just
it
watching
kept
it happen.
not happening. And I was like,
He's
"What?
gone.
Are we just gonna let this happen?" But like, I think I had just done something, so I didn't want to like keep like being the one talking. I totally thought Aaron and Kalere were in the room when that was happening.
Right.
And then they said something, and then I eventually stepped in. I was like, all right, we're gonna like move on, and I think it like still like worked. But if I am being honest, I did do an oopsie in that scene. And I got a little mixed up.
Well, there is the wait. You guys all saw that, right? Like later on, Jackson says, like, if I had seen that, and you're like, wait, oh,
Yeah, there was like a
shoot.
moment there. I was like, oh,
Right.
wait, okay, it all makes sense now. And it was like, that's why no one was saying anything.
Right.
But if I don't know if I would have played it much different knowing that. I mean, like, it was definitely a very tense moment, and it's like a weird, like, hey, that's my friend, and that person is like threatening him, but also that's his mom.
yeah.
You know,
Exactly. That's also
and
his
it's-
mother.
I don't really know what to do here. So yeah, I mean, and how it relates, I guess, like Rizigig and his family.
Or does it?
lot-
It might not.
I mean, like, it doesn't exactly like it. Like, this is it's one of those. I mean, you know, you go to
Just
that one friend's
what is
house
going on?
and their house, and you're like, yo, if that happened in my house, my mom would freak out. And,
I
you
didn't know
and
this was an option for family context at
Yeah.
all.
yeah,
sort of.
exactly.
And that's exactly what I wondered. Like, is this just even so bizarre that it's like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it was definitely like is this normal? Is this not normal? Am I supposed to do something? Am I not supposed to do something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it was very like overwhelming and unexpected, and I totally was not I as the player was not expecting anything like that to happen, and was like pretty stunned.
Right. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely it was a shock. Chance Steven mentioned he thought I was gonna kill Urkel, which is pretty
Yeah.
good.
You didn't tell Chance you were gonna do that, right?
No.
So good. I'm so
So
glad.
Zach, that I also wanted to just because I only had one other thing that is related. For Urkel, you're still, I'm sure, processing like, yeah, I did murder Vero, but also everything I've done over the last month has been thwarting his plans. When Sarah's like, it's your fault, is there any part of Urkel's brain that's already thought through, like, is it my fault?
Right. No, that's a good question. I think yes. You know, I think so. I think he had a lot of time to think. You know, he had a lot of time to think about what had happened in the past. But I think there's a piece of him that always is going to think that it's his fault. And
Sure.
that's because I think the reason is because like it is his fault. like him choosing to run away, and then yes, it is absolutely, we hear later that it has to do with the Mwangi too, right? Like that's why he kind of enacted more vengeance. Vero enacted
Well, he
vengeance more than
specifically
anything.
says I was gonna let you go, doesn't
Right,
he?
right,
Doesn't
yes.
Vero say I wasn't even gonna do anything? That's
Absolutely.
what I mean. Yeah, it's your fault, but it's not this blind fit of rage. It's totally unrelated to this, like, yeah, it's my fault, but I was helping my friends combat the world not dying.
Right.
It's like, that's what I mean. It's so complicated because it looks like a direct relationship, but it's not. The direct relationship is a ruse behind
Totally.
this weird, yin yang. And that's what I mean specifically. Like, does Urkel, can he see that? Or is
Yeah.
it still so close that it's like,
Yeah,
I still
I
got
don't think
wrapped
so.
up in this?
Right. I think that's exactly. I don't think so. I think it's still in his head that, you know, if it's like, it's one of those, like, if I just would have X moments, you know, like if I just would have this, then this wouldn't have happened.
If I had
Because-
not used my real name
Right.
2 days after murdering one of the most famous men in the country, maybe, had I not done that, things would be different.
I think it's because he it's personal. Like eventually this gets personal. It's post, you know, it is post Mwangi that it becomes
Right.
personal. But it's like, if I just didn't, you know, if there wasn't so much wrapped up, if I didn't, you know, push him off, if I didn't run away, if I didn't try to get, you know, if I didn't get so many people involved, or if I didn't like
Right.
start developing a relationship with
Right.
my dad, even, you know, like this wouldn't have happened. So I think it's a lot of self blaming, and you're right. I think it may be misplaced, but as a character, I don't think he can see past that just yet. And Sarah, you know, we have this weird thing where she like is super mad and then she hugs him and then she's gonna kill him and then she's just happy that he's alive. Like, so she is just, her emotions are, it was even mentioned in the Discord, El Ray Bug, who's in the chat right now, had mentioned she's just not dealing with it well. Like, she doesn't have a good way of dealing with these kind of like sporadic emotions. And I think there's a piece of her that does want to kill him for the pain that he's caused.
That he did cause.
And also the fact that he's here right now and she's having to save him with all these people and like he's gonna die, you know? So it's like a misplaced anger. And it just looks really dirty, you know? Exactly. She might die, you know? It looks dirty on paper for her. And I think she's having a hard time processing it all. So really good observation and good question to kind of ask about the mental state of Urkel. Especially going into, you know, we go to this next, we move into this next episode 83, phase 2. And this is, we have to just start off by talking about phase 2. This is the Indirectu Kissu, which may be one of the best memes to come out of this whole arc.
Only after Mr. Vittorio.
Yes. So it's very, very silly, but for this episode we get back to kind of the underground room, the dirt room with Vittori, and there's like a debrief that happens before we actually start phase 2, and then towards the episode, you know, we begin the actual Urkel executes kind of the second half of the bank robbery, so we can pay off Vittori for all he's done, and unfortunately it doesn't go as planned, to say the least, and leaves one of the biggest cliffhangers. Luckily, we're going to discuss what happens this evening. But you know, there's a good conversation between Kaleri and Urkel about, you know, what happened, what Aaron saw, and then Silas, Frizzigig catches us up about what happened with Jeremiah. And that's where that soundbite comes that we've played a few times of just Urkel saying gods, which is pretty silly. But you talk about this again, and he states that Jeremiah lost his leg. And then you say, you got it, that's the one. You say, I'll never forgive myself for that. How much is this haunting Frizz? And has there been any processing on the, like, back burner of this event, like since you've kind of been running around in Eladir?
I mean, I think it's like every spare moment, like he's thinking about that and what happened and everything that has been left behind them. You know, and this and I think it kind of comes up in I don't know how many episodes before this, but they have the run-in with the level 1 NPC bandits that get totally owned, and I think at one point Frizzigig says like, "What's
totally
the point?"
owned?
And that's kind of like this whole like this, I guess this thing he's struggling with now is you know, already deep into this existential crisis of, you know, what do I do with my life now? He's also now kind of like realizing that maybe we're not are we the good guys, you know? And like look at all of, I mean, like, sure,
are we the baddies?
I guess we're doing these things that like are good, but at what cost? And Frizzigig is constantly wrestling with that. And yeah, we haven't had like a lot of chances for it to come out. Other than that moment where he like kind of gets to tell everyone like, hey, this happened and this was really messed up, and we like can't let that happen again. And so yeah, I guess Frizzigig is struggling right now. Very much any spare time to think, he's asking himself like, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And if we succeed, is it even gonna be worth it? Like, are we gonna do more harm than good here?
Right. Yeah. Really good. I think that's kind of the moral compass, right? That we've talked about, especially with I mean, I wouldn't call Urkel a moral compass, or even Kaleri an Urkel combo moral compass. But with somebody like Sarah kind of taking the place, and she just doesn't have that, it's like, Frizz has kind of been the go-to guy to measure each situation. And I would say he's got a track record of that too. I mean, the Dragon back in season 2, always kind of questioning what is right. What is kind of the right thing to do, even when all of us are like, let's just kill it. Let's just kill this thing. So I think that's a great point. Later on, we have, we've talked about this before a little bit, but Kaleri has kind of been the point person to talk to Alec on our behalf, and she writes him a letter and sends him a little bubble bottle of the viscous goo. It's so silly, actually. But
a letter and a bottle of goo.
And a bottle of goo. We have a letter, and she signs "With love, Kaleri." We don't have to focus on the way she signed the letter. We don't have to talk about it. We don't have to. More so,
I can't think of a better love letter to get it. Little bottle of goo.
Well, I don't think we have to talk about it. We don't have to. But more so, Kaleri, does Kaleri think that her and the party's relationship with Alec is done for here? She hints a lot at, like, I don't know if this will convince you otherwise. I hope it will. I don't know if you'll find a way to trust us, but I'm going to do this to let you know anyway. What do you think? What's going on in her head about that relationship?
I think Kaleri realizes that Alec is kind of getting lost in the sauce, like, fully, and like he is committing to something that's giving him structure and giving him purpose, which is something that he desperately wanted and needed, and is getting from the Hell Knights. And she just realizes that they're on different paths at this point, and things look really bad from the outside, no matter how you look at it, really. From Alec's perspective, especially as like such a stark follower of the law, for sure, but any onlooker, like if you were to tell them there's this group of people running away from the Eldir like guard, they killed one of the guardsmen who were trying to bring in a murderer, like it's bad. Like it's just bad. And so Kaleri realizes that, like, unless Alec believes them and sees it for himself, they'll probably never see him again. And I think she's like kind of upset about that, but also just like it is what it is. Like, people come in and out of your life all the time. But I think that the main point of this letter was to say, if I never see you again, I did and do care about you, right? Like, don't get me wrong, like that's not why, like, I won't ever see you again. It's because we're on different paths, and if we come into contact again and the end of this story is a little bit different, if he doesn't come to help, if he doesn't see what happened and believe Urkel's side of the story, then like there's a good chance he would try to arrest us, right? And then like at that point, what do you do? So.
Right. Totally. Yeah, great answer. We are getting, we're moving into this kind of the latter half of this arc. The conversation goes well. Sarah not doing great, not really looking great. She's struggling to heal, and the party kind of convinces her to stay behind. We begin to execute the plan. It goes off without a hitch. Urkel still has access to kind of the main vault through his like palm stuff, and we move forward to this final portal. The vault opens. He goes through and appears on the rooftop of the Eldir National Bank, and unfortunately, does not appear where he thought he would appear. Which moves us into episode 84. And this is where stuff kind of starts to hit the fan. Viro's return. we were left kind of on a cliffhanger on episode 83 that sounded potentially like they were in on it, like the whole city was in on it. The Board of Trustees is in on this kind of conflict. Not conflict, that's not the right word. This like ruse a little bit. And we move into 84, learning that the Steward of Eladier has no idea what's going on, and Vero kind of is revealing himself at this moment. Silas, the episode starts. We hear the steward say, "What is the meaning of this? Somebody arrest this man," and there's a shot that rings out, and he's shot in the neck. There's this weird standoff that happens. Party is standing still, waiting for somebody to make a move, and Frizz immediately is ready to jump into combat. Is this about protecting his friends? Is this about killing Vero? Or is this a response to the Board of Trustees all being killed? Or is it everything else? What is the motive there?
I mean, yes.
Right.
Yeah, like it's just a lot, and I think he's just overwhelmed, like so incredibly and overwhelmed with what is going on, and doesn't know what to do anymore other than lash out.
Yeah, totally. It's a chaotic scene. And then so movement kind of happens here. There's a betrayal. Vittori betrays the group, has joined Vero, and then there's this huge mechanical machine that also kind of appears, holding Alec, holding Sarah over a 55-foot building. 55-story building. 55 feet. That's rookie numbers. We could survive that fall. But then there's a question that's asked. Where is the keystone? Ronnie, the decision not to share this information about the keystone with Vero, was this a hard call? Was this a hard call to make with the lives of Sarah and Alec at stake? What's going through Kaleri's head?
I think that it was hard, not because she ever thought that there was a chance that she would tell him, but just hard because she knew what she had to do. And the amount of emotional weight that comes with that decision is tough, regardless. But I mean, Kaleri's whole character is fueled by the essentially hero complex that she has about saving the world. So it's not like necessarily sacrificing them. It's if I, let you know where the keystone is, there's a lot more lives that are going to be lost. In fact, we might all lose our lives anyway, right? It's like not even a greater good thing. It's just like do I want to die now or later? Like, do I want you to kill my family and friends now or later, right? And Kaleri's not, a stranger to loss either. So she was just kind of bracing herself for what she thought was the inevitable, right? And then in the back of her head too, she's like, even if I tell you, there's a good chance you drop them anyway, right? Like, even if I tell you, there's a good chance you try to kill us anyway. So why would I believe you when you say I will let these people live if you give me the information? She's like, no, I'll go down swinging. I'm not going to give you this information, we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
Okay? We're America.
That is the party name, the Americans.
Oh God, no.
No.
Removal.
Okay.
Veto.
That's
I think you mean the U.S. Americans. All right.
That's true.
Yes. the
That's
US
very
Americans.
true.
Whole geographic term into our sense of cultural identity.
That sounds like almost as bad of a name as
Very
like the
manifest
Boys.
destiny. Okay, we're not doing
Yeah,
that.
guys, let's cool out with this whole James K. Polk take over the rest of the world. So, I can say that because he's my ancestor, so I can make fun of him.
I've been to his house.
I haven't.
He used to live in the place I lived in Tennessee. Fun fact.
He used
See?
to live, I think, where my grandma used to live.
Michael, we have finally gotten to the part where you want to talk.
Let's go. I've been waiting. So I would be doing a discredit if I didn't take just a second to go through that opening scene because, as I mentioned before, I just re-listened to it. It's easily my favorite scene of the entire podcast as a whole. Just the back and forth with Vero, you know, F you, we're not showing you where the keystone is. To the chains being pulled out, F you again, the chains get dropped, the organ music pipes in,
Dude.
and you just hear just 5 just big fat exhales. And I think in that like 5 or 6 seconds of just like silence, like that took the place of the discussion you guys would have had of like, are we gonna kill these guys? It was just like 3 episodes of combat. Here we go. Like, oh my god. So that was amazing. I'm getting goosebumps just like talking about it right now. But so that in itself, so just like from your reaction, I would say is that seems accurate, but just I guess give me a glimpse into your headspace in that like 5-second exhale that you guys had. And I guess that can be a question for both of you guys.
I have very vivid feelings about this moment. And I'm really
Right.
glad that you brought it up. I think for me, that exhale was a lot of grief as a player, and as a character, a lot of rage. So, um, from my perspective as Ronnie, I was like, shit, Chance just killed Sarah and Alec.
Right.
Like, I think I even said that. I was like, Chance fucking killed Sarah and Alec, right? Like, I was so taken aback by the fact that like he would even, and of course like the dragon was there and he had like he wasn't gonna do that whole like railroaded your friends die and there's nothing you can do about that to us, but he wanted to make us think that he was, right? Like,
Tiberius deserved better.
exactly. Like he wasn't gonna pull another Tiberius on us.
Yeah.
But like it seemed like he was, and I was just like, shit, man. But then from Kalari's perspective, it was kind of that the chains are falling, the thread is snapping. It was like, no matter what happens, I will see you dead. Like, even if I died doing it. And that was, as you said, explained by the 5-second pause, and it was just kind of over at that point. It was game over. It was lights out.
Hell yeah.
I think for me, like it was just kind of, it's building on what Zach asked me a second ago. Like Brizigig is at this point where just nothing has worked out, like at least cleanly. And they finally have Urkel. It's like, let's just get this done, get out of here. Realizing that the whole time you were playing right into everyone's plans, and everything was a lie, and here you are like in it's thinking you finally got ahead for a second when everything's been so bad, and then all of a sudden you realize that like you weren't ahead, that's just the other team coming and like lapping you behind you. And like that's exactly what happened. And just I guess like building on that sense of I guess like hopelessness and not knowing what else to do. I guess that was just like the yeah, just like the moment like right before Brizigig's cup, completely boiled over and exploded. And yeah, I guess it was just like that moment of that brief moment of clarity before like full panic mode sets in.
Right.
And like calm, where like you realize like everything is about to go wrong, and like this is my only clear thought before I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And like that's what that like I guess breath was for me.
Yeah.
That is dope. And then in Zach, I was gonna say you technically have 2 sides of this experience, so maybe you can give us a little glimpse into I guess your reaction of Sarah getting dropped, as well as Urkel standing there and having just made the decision that led to them being dropped.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to that episode again earlier today, and there's such a fun thing that happens where they're both being dangled, and Kalari's like, if you do this, like I'm gonna tell your head where the keystone is after I like cut your head off, like decapitate you. It's a very cool line. And then Urkel kind of going from negotiating, like put him down. We're businessmen. We'll talk about this because you're a freaking liar if you think that we're just gonna do this, and right at the end, like, if you do this, you're dead. Like, understanding the consequences that are going to come if they get dropped. And Vera just does it. He's like, I grow tired of this. Like, snaps his fingers and the chains fall. So, the shock, I immediately thought, for me, it was more like, okay, Sarah has been turned over by Vittori, like, because she was supposed to be resting there. So, like, huge betrayal of that trust. So Urkel's pissed about that. And then, like, Sarah, I think, in her head, like, falling is like, okay, I have failed my ultimate job of keeping my son safe, first off. Because this was supposed to be a done deal, and it's not that now. And then Urkel now... We've talked about Darkest Timeline a lot, like what pushes your character to their darkest moment, right? And this is it for Urkel. Like, it's like if Vero is the reason for the death of his mother and father, he's just gonna rip and tear, right? Like he's gonna go on a rampage, which we definitely see, in the first few moments of this. So I think it is a cool place to be in from a dual perspective of, like, what does Sarah feel? What does Urkel feel? But after she drops, I think it's like, as soon as the camera, the quote camera leaves view of them and we roll initiative, in my mind, Sarah's already dead. Like, and now I have to fully be Urkel. I have to fully react to what is going to happen next, And like you said, I love the size. Going back and listening to just like I think we all were just like, okay, they're dead. There might be a couple things we can do to try to save one of them, but they're dead. And so now we fight, and we have to deal with kind of the aftermath of that. So really good question. Moving, I hope does that answer your question? I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was great, and just like it made that. It was such a heavy moment. It just made it made the payoff that much sweeter.
Right. It was, and I okay. We haven't talked about this yet, Ronnie. I have to say, I mean, it's not just the scene, but the entire soundtrack for Eladier is amazing. Like you had said, I think you said there's more music for this like 10 episode like side quest than for all of season 2, which is comical, but at the same time it's like we know, because we're listening and we have like audio files, like us as basically good people, to listen to the tone of the Eladier music, the tone of the combat music, and then what you turn that combat music into for the final boss fight is just magical. The organ coming in, like Michael said, is just like Chance made it really loud, really brash. You can't, I mean, it's kind of hard to hear what we're talking about as we're rolling for initiative, but the music is it is setting the tone, right? Like, this is going to be, like you said, Michael, like, this is going to be 3 episodes, So very good. We're so freaking lucky to have you.
I mean, like, it's just really fun to do. So like every time people are like, the music is so good, I'm like, thanks. I would do it anyway, right? Like the fact that I have the space to get to do the music, I think is one of the reasons I love doing this podcast so much. Is like I have a free space to be creative in that way, in the same way that Chance has a chance to Fun. He can, weave a story in a way that like it's different when you have an audience, right? Like I can play around in FL Studio all day and make music that I love, but what makes me want to put that extra effort in is the fact that there's an audience, right? At the end of the day, there's people to show.
Right.
And yeah, I'll send you all my junk stuff, Hunter.
But,
But
I will. Please start a SoundCloud. I'll be the only. Send it to me. I'll listen to everything.
but yeah, there definitely is more music. There's more music for this little Urkel retrieval arc than there is for season 2. I think for a couple of reasons. One, I just think I was back in my wheelhouse with being able to make orchestral music again. And because I'm not a drummer, I'm like very classically trained musician. That's a meme. I'm not really that trained, but
I don't play the drums.
That's
Real
a
me.
meme.
like
I'm
I don't. I mean, I'm
trained.
not
I
a
don't-
percussionist,
I
right?
know.
Like I played piano, I was in choir, and I played the trumpet, right? Like so, I'm very at home in orchestral music. So that was super fun. Also, just like a year and a half of culmination of finally learning how to use a software.
Right.
So like I really got to really test my chops out for the first time again with a brand new soundscape where I could start from the bottom up, and I was really excited about that.
Man.
And then the third thing, it was over the summer. Like it just happened to be over the summer when I didn't have as many class stuff going on. So I could like sit at my computer for 10 hours one day and hammer out, like the I think I made the Town of Elidare music and like the
Battle music.
stringy and the battle music
Yeah.
and like one other piece all on the same day. Like I think
Yeah.
I just like got up at 10
Wow.
and like was working until 2 in the morning just making music. So it was really fun, and I'm glad that like the soundscape for Elidare was so well defined. It was really fun to do.
So I have not a question, but just a comment on the battle music. The like vibes I got from it, I was like Game of Thrones meets Inception, like those kind of
Dude.
scores. And that's like how I was like envisioning it in my head as just it was so good, so
That's
good.
amazing.
Kudos to you.
Because the whole scene made me think of the finale to the first season of Westworld, and I can't think of a show that's more part Inception, part Game of Thrones than Westworld. So truly.
Absolutely.
And I was gonna say, Ronnie, I'm starting. You've done too well. I'm starting to not be impressed because all the music just makes so much sense. Like it's also, I mean, truly like thematic. Like everything's so blended. To a lot of what Zach's pointed out. Like it doesn't even. There was a point where it definitely felt more like, oh, one of the talented players is making cool music, and now it feels more like this show has a, sort of an oral aesthetic that just works, and I'm always blown away by it, truly.
Thanks. I mean, big shout out to Chance for mixing things and using transitions that make it really all fit, and obviously like getting to play through it. I think I said this at the first What's Going On Here, but it's almost like a synesthesia thing, right? It's like when you experience something, it's a lot easier for me to put those emotions into a piece of music, right? Because I know how it made me feel, and I can try to make music that makes me feel that way again. So it's been really cool to be able to do that.
The fight just in this first chunk, like this first like episode and a half, so 84 to 85 is absolutely wild. We know right away that these guys are just gonna kill us, like truly. There's nothing very like all of their hits are in the 30s. So Vote coming in just swinging super hard. The initial crit on Urkel, like literally blowing his foot off, like to where my movement speed was just inhibited out the gate. Did you guys? I mean, I remember feeling very helpless at the first half, and then we get this almost like a second wave, like maybe like a second wind, and the dice just fall amazing, and we start and some of the rules get picked apart. Silas, you catch that he is that I believe it's Vero. There's so many V's. Maybe Vote is frightened and is just getting docked. I was talking to Chance a little bit earlier today about how the system itself lends itself to tell amazing stories simply based on +1s and +2s, -1, and just re-listening. There's so much emotion going into kind of every play, and Kaleri specifically gets several good hits in, near misses, but also ends up kind of nearing the almost getting into, as we get to the end of this thing, near death, like closer to death than she's ever been. Was that freaking you out a little bit?
Yeah, I that was terrifying. So like to paint a picture to everyone, Chance and I had talked off air about like what we were gonna do, like if Kaleri got dropped again after she had gotten so low, and he was like, "Yeah, you're like one dying away from dead," and I was like, "No, I've got that Ioun Stone. I'm fine. Like we can definitely like play it up. Like I'm not gonna say anything about it. And then I'm gonna go down and like you can be like, oh, dying 4, you're like permadead, and then I'll be like, oh, I still have the one like ace in the hole that keeps me alive." And so like the whole combat, I had this like feigned sense of false confidence, right? Like I was like, there's nothing, like I won't die because I've got this ace in the back of my pocket. I've got a hero point, so I can reroll if I have to. It's gonna be fine. And then when all that happened with the shambling mound, it kind of got way too real for a second, because like, literally the episode before, Chance was like, "Oh yeah, and if you are like dealt a dying blow by a crit effect, you go down 2 dying phases instead of 1." And that was a rule we hadn't been playing with up to that point. So it was a culmination of that false confidence I had and that rule that we had just learned that made everything kind of shift in a moment. Because Chance crit me and didn't apply the crit damage, and I was like, okay, well, I could either be like a scummy player and not say anything, or I could let this story be told by it how it's supposed to be told.
Right.
And so I was like, Chance, you didn't crit me. You crit me, right? Like, what's the extra damage? I just happened to have 22 health, and it was 21 extra damage, and I went down to 1 HP. And if I had gone to 0, I was permadead, even with my Ioun Stone. Hero point doesn't matter. I'm just dead. And that's one of those things where, like Zach was saying, the dice tell a story. And it was almost as if everything that had happened up to that moment led to Kaleri having 1 health point left, right? The
Right.
dice rolls of Frizzigig, like forcing those like elixirs of life down my throat, and like the rolls that he made, if he would have rolled 1 less, I'd be dead, right? So
Totally.
more shocking than terrifying, because I didn't have the opportunity to be scared, right? It was just like it happened and I almost died. I don't know. It was almost like in real life in that way, right? Like whenever you have a near-death experience in real life that you don't see coming, you kind of just freeze. And
Yeah.
that's it.
I have
It's over.
I have a comment that comes in.
Yeah.
So going off that, I want, and forgive me if you already said this, but I want to say, because of Frizzigig's, and I was gonna say it ties back into the question you answered earlier, Silas, about kind of switching up your play styles as your damage gets a little bit more ineffective. And I think you literally had the turn where you went for whatever your kind of basic attack is. I forget what it's called, like an acid flask or one of those, and you missed, and you were like, okay, yeah, Alchemist Fire, and you were like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna throw what was the one that made him dazzled?
Light bomb?
That's like a, I don't remember exactly what I threw, but that's a feat that Frizzigig has, is when he uses his like
But right, so
alchemy. Yeah, he can add in some cool stuff.
But right, so you switched it up. You're like, okay, I'm not gonna try and do damage again, and you did that. And if you hadn't done that, Chance's original nat 20 wouldn't have been a concealment check, And then I don't know how that works, but would his crit have done 1 more damage? Like if you use that 20
Holy
as the
cow!
crit?
Oh
Because
yeah, that's also
remember,
a good point. I didn't even
remember
think
he
about
rolled
that.
a 20 and then it was like a 37, I think was the crit, and it was a crit because it was above your AC. But that
No.
first roll was a nat
Also-
20, and it
Yeah.
got nullified because of Silas's dazzle.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the
Hey,
biggest
I
here
didn't
is
think about that.
Chances doing only the critical hit, not the critical hits, but whatever, like
Only nat
It's
20s.
like-
Yeah.
on nat 20. So what? Yeah, even what would it look like if it had been 1 health point, but like I don't know, you lose an arm or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's extra damage.
It's just
or
extra
it's
damage,
bleed
and
damage.
Calere's dead.
Yeah.
It literally,
Clary's
if it was
just bad.
1 extra damage.
Yes.
I
Holy
don't-
cow!
Done- What I don't. It was a crit either way, so I don't think it would have done extra damage.
Right.
But-
I guess
yeah.
the only
Or
way
if
is
it had
if
been
you,
like
if
a
you do a
bleed
crit
effect
card
or
on the
something,
20.
That's
Anything
correct.
like
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
There are
I-
several worlds, most worlds where Clary is dead. As we're
Calere's
having this
dead.
conversation.
That's why we're watching this one.
Exactly.
I did wonder a lot, kind of. It's relevant, but also kind of dips back a bit, Ronnie. Like when it goes back to the Keystone and the reality of Clary as a character possibly like dying. How much is Clary thinking about her own mother and her own, responsibilities that now Clary has also accepted through her tribe? Like, of course, like Clary herself is going to make this calculated decision to fight first, but I'd imagine if nothing else, there's a new layer and weight to that decision than even midway season 2 Clary would have gone through.
Yeah, I definitely think that's super true. I think that was one thing that went through my head too. I think I probably mentioned it. It's like the memories of like I think maybe it was Silas who said it, or Jackson or somebody. The memories of the people, the Akujai people, flashing through all of our heads. Like we can't betray them. We know that they're gonna go and try to kill all of them. But yeah, I think that newfound weight on Calere was definitely an additive, right? Like it was like you said, like she always would have been like, I'm just gonna fight you, right? But there is an extra layer of it is my duty to protect my people and the people of Galarian, right? In a way that is more weighty than just like I'm the underdog, I'm fighting because I have to fight, right? So I'm glad that you pointed that out. Calere skin.
Letty, I can't. That's why I can't remember it. I always think I'm saying it.
For sure.
Nah, I just-
Well, I mean, the fight goes on. Obviously, a big moment in this fight is the first person to go down ends up being Mr. Julius Vero. No, let's back it up. No, Calere pushes the robot off the cliff with
Yeah.
a single push.
Well,
Just
I was gonna say you
Whoa!
mentioned, like I caught some stuff in
Oh.
that fight, and I think that was my biggest. I think in this
Yes!
entire show, my biggest like,
For sure.
actually, was when
Actually.
yeah, you would be able to like, or well, yeah, if you fell off, you would be able to have like a chance to
Reflex
grab
save.
on. Somebody said
Yeah.
that. And I was like, well, he already used his reaction on attack of opportunity,
Actually?
so like.
right. And he has
so
no
I was
reaction.
so my head was really big in that moment. I just kinda wanted-
As it should
Massive
be.
brain, Silas.
Yeah, well deserved.
no, not
Big
big in a
head,
smart
big
way,
brain.
sorry, big in like a I'm fucking sick.
I am very badass, Silas.
Lots of pride.
So yeah, great.
Uh.
And that, I mean, I would say, if that sucker stayed alive, because it swung at Calere twice, and it's like, oh, I have 5 HP left. Like,
Yeah, it
was
demolished me.
right, it's doing huge damage. So the fact that we're able to get rid of this, and then also get the aid of a copper dragon, Sarah comes back, Alec comes back. We have a huge. It's such a spread out, cool fight. I was, just the visual is like, okay, now we're back to Alec and Vote. What are they doing? Now we're back to Frizz and Aaron and kind of this between Vero and Vote kind of battle going on. Urkel dragging his bloody foot across the ground and just yelling at Vero. Kalere dealing with the issue over with, Vote as well. And then the Copper Dragon, Sarah, and the red-haired guy. Halberg. Thank you.
Halberg.
Yeah, Halberg. It's a very there's a lot going on this battlefield. And then, Urkel gets a very poetic kill on Vero, which kind of sends the rest of the battle into this panic mode where I initially thought as Zach, okay, this is where we turn the tide. But a little bit before, I feel like it's the end of episode 84 where the tide really turns. With all of those saves we were just talking about, we start surviving in a time where we shouldn't survive. But with the death of Vero, we now have kind of the rest of the fight laid out before us. Thank you for whoever just followed. Amazing to have you. So that the remaining battle is about, a lot of people overcoming a lot of different enemies. I think the Aaron, if we could talk about Aaron for a second and what happens to Vote as he goes down. Aaron does a conquistador, step on his chest, which is very,
sick.
very cool. And then, fighting the shambling mound, we have kind of Urkel back on his feet, per se, fighting alongside Kalere. And it all kind of gets wrapped up with Kalere should not be fighting, just shouldn't be fighting, but does it anyway. And says, somebody had mentioned in the chat, I think it was Lisa, I think it was Elray Bug, saying, Kalere just saying, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the kill, and does it at the end of this last episode, 86. Was that, I think I already know the answer, but was that a Ronnie thing, or was that a Kalere thing, or was it both? No, I have to do this.
I think it was both, right? I think in the pre-pod where we're talking about our characters and ourselves, I think this is one of those moments where the Venn diagram of Ronnie and Kalere are more like concentric circles.
Right.
Right? Because Chance has said, in when he's talking about being a DM, I want the final hit on the boss. That's just part of my playstyle, right? That's
right.
One thing. Two, Kalere is all about rage and revenge and vengeance, and this is very much that, right? And then three, she's also a barbarian. She's gonna just fight until she drops,
right?
Essentially, that's how she's been since book one. And of course, she's learned to change a little bit, right? Over time, she's become more trusting. She's become more logical. But this is kind of Kalere's Sarah moment right here, right? Where everything kind of reverts a little bit because it's been so hectic. She's almost dead. She's kind of fight or flight, and is only fight. There's no flight even an option here. She's on death's door and is if I don't kill this thing right now, I'm dead, essentially. I don't want my destiny in anyone else's hands, right? Urkel could miss every single strike. Frizzigig could miss every single strike. Aaron could probably hit it with a magic missile and it would die anyway, but we're not going to talk about it, right? So in Kalere's mind, she's no, I'm finishing this. This is over. I'm saying this is over right now.
Right.
And somehow that's what happens. And
yeah.
It's kind of cool.
What are some other I don't know if Hunter or Michael, if you guys have anything you want to jump in on. But that is
I got a question.
Yeah, fire away. We're about ready to wrap up here. We got time for a few more. The notes.
Gosh, it's good. The sun's gotten down, and I didn't want to get up and open my blinds on camera. But I do have questions. Zach, I have one for you.
Yeah.
That if you didn't want to talk about it, that's fine. But as mentioned earlier, you're playing two characters here. Also in two very different positions in the situation. and you're all, you've also DM'd quite a bit. Like, how are you dealing with controlling a player character that you also have known from day one is to some degree a plot device?
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of reconcile that with playing the game in that moment where, and I guess I should caveat, I remember talking to Chance, I think either right before or right after that episode dropped, and he just kind of talked about the idea of like, oh, there's kind of a like, don't don't mess with my player sort of respect
Right,
that
right.
goes on. And here's a situation where, you probably understand it's a little different, but how does that feel?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question, and I think we need to kind of establish this before moving forward with this question. Is that Sarah existed before the plot device? Sarah was part of Tiberius's backstory. When I was fleshing out Tiberius for Chance,
Right.
at the very beginning, we talked about Sarah. We talked about her being an investigator. We talked about her meeting Tiberius on a private case, which
Right.
I thought was awesome that he had found a way to come and bring her kind of into the story, regardless. But so I think it helped me. Thank you, Too Much Dog, for the sub. I think it helped me wrap my head around her. She exists in this world before the turn of events after season 2, like at the end of season 2. So it was a very weird time being in as we were getting this kind of going and Sarah grabbing all the players and be like, here's what I know. I think it's a very weird thing because Chance would kind of feed me information and be like, this is what she knows. So properly portraying that.
Yeah.
Right, like properly portraying that was kind of hard because I didn't want to mess up anything that he planned. I was like, I could literally say anything here and it's just canon. Like, so I, starting there was a little bit tricky, but I think it only got easier. And especially now at the end of kind of all this, we're not done yet, but we have, we're getting there. We just had the big fight, and it's been so cool to kind of explore her psyche. The hardest thing about this is diving into a character that I haven't been able to establish a personality for, and having to deal with grief with that character right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you portray a character properly on their worst day when you've never had a chance to explore them on their regular day to day? So I would say, as a plot device, I think it works. I think it worked just fine. I think I'm happy. Personally, I'm happy with how she turned out, and I'm happy with some of the twists and turns. I think it was interesting, talking with some of the guys afterwards, like some of the choices she made in these past few episodes of like putting a knife to Urkel's throat, saying she's sorry, giving him a hug. Like, it just was all over the place. But I think it was like, honestly, like, it's like I'm okay with kind of her chaotic, half insane mind,
Or chaotic.
Right. And I think it was fun to push, like, selfishly, like you said, dipping into some of those DM boots, putting on those DM boots to push people like Frizzygig, to push Kalere in like one of the first things she does is kill those homeless people. And it's like, what the heck? Like, this is not us. Like, Frizzygig just freaking out and being like, look, we're gonna need to talk about how we do things with this lady. And I think I wasn't trying to put the party on their heels. Like, I don't want to be I don't like players who are like, I'm just gonna try to screw with them. But I think it was important to show, like, how do we react? Like, how does this party react when, like, chaos happens? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think it all, like, has divisive, literally, as the character was, it all made sense. None of it felt out of place or forced. And something along that lines I thought of, and especially as you were answering, is, on one hand, you see that moment where even after Sarah's fallen from the building, Eren stopped her. The dragon saves her. She's back in combat. She's gonna die. And to me, you seem to paint the picture most importantly that she's just like there for it, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
How horrible, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, like
I'm
you
here
say,
for it.
what was her goal? To get her dumbass son out of this dumbass prison. And now it's like, you know, I'm sure she's like, we got fucking dragons up in here. Alex fell off a building. You know what? I'm good with this.
I'm
And
good.
as a player, like I can imagine that there's a bit of like, you know what, if this is the way she's gonna go out, then that's fine. But I do. There was another question I had to the episode when you guys decide that she's gonna stay behind, and Urkel goes to say goodbye. You know, I wanted to ask: is Urkel mentally saying goodbye, even in the way that Uzak kind of knew you might have to in that moment with Tiberius? And was Sarah saying goodbye, or did she mean it when she said, "You better come back when I'm better"?
Yeah, I think that's also really good, and I won't take up too much time because I feel like I've just really talked a bunch about this. So I think that I think for Urkel, he's still, you know, he'd mentioned a few times, like, he's not acting, he shouldn't be acting the way he's acting right now. He still very much feels like he's got a job to do. And so checking in with his mom and being like, hey, I'll be right back, is legitimately him saying, I'll be right back. Like, you're going to be fine. Like, Eren is like, she should be fine, you know? Which leads us to the greatest joke in the series, another one of, but this is the state championship she's got to play, you know, which is just so funny. That whole bit is so funny. Every scout in the country's going to be there. But no, and I think Sarah would know more than anything, like, oh, I don't feel very good, you know, like truly, like, it's going to be a toss up whether or not I can recover from this, but doesn't want him to worry, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's the headspace there, going into kind of this huge wrap-up fight. Let's take one more question, if there are any last thoughts before we wrap tonight?
Yes. I did. I think I mentioned it before the show. I wanted to just give a shout out to Eren/Jackson. I think every time he opens his mouth, like throughout the combat, it either makes me laugh or I'm just like, dude, what? I love wizards, you know, like and just like that imagery of him standing on the head, and I think he had the crystal staff in his hand maybe, and it was just that should be turned into a card.
Ooh,
but
what a great scene.
Crystal staff should be a pet.
Crystal Shaft
so
should be
just
cool.
that, like all of his moves in general, and you know his little one-liners and everything. I think he definitely added a lot to it. So shout out to him.
Absolutely.
Well, everyone, I think we have already gone over, obviously, quite a bit, but it was a chunky one to talk about. So I think, you know, it's such once we go into this next, kind of the aftermath, you know, then these next few episodes, we are fully caught up to what has been absolutely published and is available to the public. But you know, I do want to say it's been really good. Thank you guys for being here. Such a lot of good questions tonight, really, to get into the minds of these heroes. So I want to thank Ronnie and Silas for taking some time out of their evening to answer some of these questions. So thank you so much, guys. And huge thanks to Hunter and to Michael for all your prep work. I know that it's hard to kind of remember what we all listen to, and it means a lot to have, you know, well thought out, really good questions for these guys. So fingers crossed, you know, fingers crossed for kind of the next section here. We hope that it's all wrapped up. It looks like the dust is settled, and like the description said at this episode this week, the snow is beginning to fall on a quiet Elodie. So we're excited. Again, huge thanks to everyone who came out tonight to watch. We are going to wrap it up there tonight. Thank you again for coming to What's Going On Here. Join us next time as we dive into the next 4 episodes. Good night, everyone. Bye bye.
Are we off? Go to Project J.
But yeah, for